Very good.
Okay.
This this first scene is, I'm inspired every time I see something like this. A wildlife view. That's my attempt at being witty, but stuff like this is just fantastic. I mean, it's a National Geographic type scene. This is just 90 miles, and we're going to go into this a lot. 90 miles north of Kansas City. This is Los Bluffs National Wildlife Refuge. And the snow geese just pile into this area in the spring and the fall. But this is the type of thing you can see. So I want to give you some tips on how to see this type of thing. Okay, let's just the basics. These are some of the things we're going to be covering. Wildlife watching. We're going to go into the prime time, the best times to go. I mentioned this earlier, hunting without a gun. You're looking for ways, the same way as a hunter, you're looking for ways to get as close as you can to that wildlife. I mean, some people, I love it. They're using their cell phone and they're proud of the pictures they get, but boy, oh boy, even if you blow it up, you can barely see the wildlife. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to get close to that wildlife. By the season, very important, very important. You don't just go up to someplace like Los Bluffs at any time of the year and expect to see, a lot of wildlife. It migration and time of the day, weather, all that stuff makes a big difference. Best spots. There's a lot of really good places to go to up your chances to see wildlife. We're going to talk about that quite a bit too. So let's go on. Okay, prime time. Here we are. This is so much fun. This scene here looks like something from the wild. I mean, really an incredible wildlife refuge or something like that out in a remote area. This is an example of how it can be as close as your backyard. This is the subdivision I live in, the lake. I live at Riss Lake, and this was a year when everything froze up, but the geese kept a little patch of ice open. And we just had all kinds of geese coming in, and I had a heyday just going down with my camera and taking photos of the geese coming in and with them sitting perched on the ice like this. So that was a fun time, but you can do that too. Some of the we're going to just go in some generalities. To start off with, early and late in the day are generally when wildlife is most active. That means at dawn and at dusk. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't other times of the day when you can see them. There are a lot of other factors like weather and that type of thing that can affect them too. But early and late, and that's when you have your best. If you're a photographer, that's when you have your best shooting light too, is during that kind of golden hour, I call it, when the sun is either first making its appearance or when it's making its last appearance. By the same token, avoid midday. Mid-morning and early afternoon, it might be convenient for you, but the wildlife often is inactive, like deer and turkeys. The deer will bed down in the middle of the day. Turkeys will be inactive. Same with ducks and geese, unless it's real cold. I mean, they just won't be that active during the middle of the day. So don't plan your wildlife watching around your schedule. do it around the wildlife that you're trying to get close to. Do it around their schedule. Another time is before or after a weather front, especially in the fall and winter. Wildlife strongly reacts to storm fronts. They can sense an approaching weather change, and they often feed actively. Similarly, they are active after the storm passes, like a cold front day, which is kind of a bluebird day. But that is one time when you can go out in the middle of the day and get some great shots of geese and ducks being active, because they're feeding up after kind of hunkering down for a while with that front. Another thing that fishermen and hunters use a lot are solander tables. And solander tables predict the time periods when wildlife and fish are active. Some people say, well, I don't know if they work. They do. They work, believe me. I've used them for fishing. The fish are more active during those major periods when they do predict that they will be active. So pay attention to that too. That's very important. On the watch, these are some trumpeter swans that I got a photo of up at Los Bluffs. Some basics: dress the part. Don't wear bright colored clothing that might alert wildlife. Again, we're hunting with a camera. You wear drab clothing or even camouflage. Even if you're not a hunter, I mean, just wear some drab clothing. It'll allow you to get a lot closer, believe me. Avoid making noise, loud talking, or even loud footsteps. They will spook woodland creatures such as deer and turkeys. Tread as silently as possible. And by that, I mean, avoid snapping, stepping on leaves, a lot of leaves, or stepping on twigs and stuff. Wildlife has outstanding hearing, and they're going to hear you coming. One nice thing, if you're trying to sneak up on, like, say, a marsh or an opening where deer and turkeys have been using, take a few steps, pause, take a few steps, pause, and so on. And that way, I mean, it's the best way for sneaking up on wildlife, and it works. I've done it many times. Blend in. If you spot wildlife, use big trees or other cover to break your outline. You don't want to walk across an open field, obviously, because when you do that, I mean, you're standing out. If you're trying to sneak across a field where you see some deer and turkeys using that area, just use the outline of the trees to sneak up. I mean, and take your time. I mean, if they're just lazily feeding and stuff, you don't have to run to get to them to get close. Use the outline of the cover, and it really does work. Freeze when wildlife is walking or running in your direction. Woodland creatures, like I say, they see much better than we do. Deer and turkeys, their eyesight is phenomenal. So just use those tips and you will get closer. Get sneaky when approaching wetlands, holding waterfowl. Again, use stealth. If you're serious about spotting ducks and geese, often set up a makeshift blind at the water's edge. Get there before dawn. I know that means setting the alarm clock and losing some sleep, but believe me, you can get some great shots if they don't see you approaching. If you're in if you are in that blind before the sun even comes up, it can be a great way to get close to wildlife. Know their habits. You know, this is important too. If you want to get photos of a certain type of creature, like ducks or geese or whatever, you know, be prepared. Study their habits, what type of habitat they prefer, what they like to eat, where they like to bed down, that type of thing. It can go a long way toward getting close. By the season, very important. Ducks, the chronology of the duck migration in the fall. Ducks arrive in teal are the first ones to start moving down. They arrive in late August and early September. And you can really see some fantastic flights of small ducks at that time. After the teal arrive, it's just a steady progression. The mallards, typically the mallards start arriving in November, but their peaks are really in late November. And you can see some fantastic concentrations of ducks at some of the places we're going to talk about later. Geese, your best opportunity to see snow geese actually is not in the fall. It's in late February and early March at places like Los Bluffs. There are some just amazing concentrations of geese. And it is awe-inspiring to see how many. I've never seen how they could even fit another goose onto a pool in some of these cases. And I'll have pictures of that a little bit later on. But hundreds of thousands of snows stop on their migration north. Biggest thing is when you hear that they're there, you better get up there fast because weather fronts will change things very quickly. And you have to take advantage of timing. Again, you got to be there at the right time. Bald eagles, they follow the waterfowl migration. Peak is in December at the Missouri waterfowl marshes. But as long as the water stays open and there are still large concentrations of ducks and geese, they will stay around. The bald eagles are kind of the cleanup crew on the migration. I mean, some of the weak waterfowl, the ones who really didn't make it too well during the migration, or maybe they were shot and just injured, and they flew into the waterfowl refuges to kind of recover. That's a big thing. And as long as there are some of those cripples around, you're going to see bald eagles too. So that can be really impressive. Turkeys, if you want to see tom turkeys, and it's really fun to see them when they're courting the hens in the spring. They put on a great show. They puff up their feathers and they do a little dance, and they're really trying to attract the women, and it is fun to watch. And you say, well, I'd have to be awful lucky to stumble onto that. Not really. I mean, you go to some of these wildlife refuges, the public ones, and you can drive through in the morning and you can see them putting on a show. April is a great month to see them. One word of caution, it's also hunting season. So you want to make sure that you're in a place that maybe doesn't allow hunting, so that you can safely observe. Deer and turkeys, where to find them? Feed fields, think feed fields. I mean, people think, oh, I have to go into the thickest part of the timber to see them. No, not so. And in the edge of these crop fields that are surrounded by timber are fantastic places to see a deer and turkey. They come out early in the morning. They come out, a lot of times they'll come out in the evening to feed, and then they'll be back early in the morning. And can be a fantastic time to spot woodland creatures. By the other place that's great, if it is all heavy timber and there aren't too many crop fields or anything, look for a clearing in the middle of all that timber. They love that, or food plots. I mean, some people plant like turnips or things like that to attract the deer. So that's a great place too. For turkeys, strutting grounds. What do I mean by strutting grounds? Strutting is when the turkeys show off for the hens. I mean, they go into these clearings or edges of fields, and they're pretty predictable where they will go, like say on a ridge top or something like that. In the spring, it starts in early April and it goes through into the middle of May. They'll be out there strutting and doing their best to attract the hens. And again, it's a show. It really is a show. So, think that too. Don't think of thick timber. Think of clearings or places right at the edge of the timber. Those are the best places. Scrapes in the fall. Buck deer make scrapes to attract does during the rut. I mean, they like to have an overhanging limb that they can do, and then they'll scrape and they'll urinate in that scrape to attract the does. And again, fantastic if you can find a fresh scrape, and it's pretty distinctive, like a pawed out area. And if you can find a fresh scrape, just hide someplace close to there and remain as motionless as you can. And chances are you'll see a big buck come by to check and see if he's had any attracting of the does. Best chances. This is one thing that a lot of my photos have come at wintertime at state parks. And that's almost speaks for itself. I mean, these state parks are so busy during the summer and fall months, but in the wintertime, they stay open, but there's hardly anybody around because nobody's camping, and there's a few hikers, that's about it. But with this lack of activity, the deer and turkeys relax, and they can be spotted often during the day. They are especially noticeable when there is snow on the ground, and that goes without saying because they're both have brown coats or feathers, and it sticks out when there's snow on the ground. So, and a lot of times you can drive through these state parks and you barely have to even get out of your car to notice some of this activity. So it's a great time to see wildlife, even songbirds and that type of thing. But for deer and turkeys, winter is one of the best. And let's face it, in January and February, it's a kind of a drab time. There isn't much going on. You can stay inside and watch football or basketball, but if you're looking for something to do in the outdoors, great time to spot wildlife. Great time to go out and see what you can find. Okay, bald eagle season. I love doing this. I absolutely love this. At one point, bald eagles were an endangered species. I mean, they were suffering from the effects of DDT. It didn't kill them, but it weakened their eggs to the point that the young wouldn't hatch out. They wouldn't last, the eggs wouldn't last long enough for the young to hatch out. And we had a real plunging population of bald eagles. But they banned, the federal government banned DDT, and they banned some other pesticides. And as a result, they also worked on enforcement of people not illegally shooting bald eagles, and worked on some habitat around some of these reservoirs and marshes. And as a result, the bald eagle has made just a stunning comeback. I mean, it's no longer that unusual to see a bald eagle when you go to a lake or to a wetland. There are a lot of bald eagles, even in Missouri and Kansas, where they are now nesting, which never used to happen. But that being said, your best chance of seeing bald eagles, again, are in the winter. Missouri has one of the largest concentrations of wintering eagles. And Kansas also attracts migrating eagles to large reservoirs, such as Milford, Clinton, and Tuttle Creek. Now, you say, why would that be so? Well, our area has tons of water that stays open even in the wintertime. And the eagles generally follow the freeze line south. They'll arrive in large numbers in late November and December. Best bet, Los Bluffs National Wildlife Refuge in Northwest Missouri. In mid-December, all the way to the end of the month and into January, it can just have one of the highest concentrations in the country of wintering bald eagles. They migrate just like the geese do. They'll be following the geese, and you can see them perched in the trees around the marshes. And some trees have multiple bald eagles in them, and it's really, really awe-inspiring to see that. If you're lucky enough, you can even see them hunt. And I've got memories of sometimes when it was just awesome. I remember one time when there were two eagles. There was one eagle that was feeding on a dead goose that was on the ice at Los Bluffs. And that before I could even start taking photos of that one bald eagle, another one came, and they started fighting over their meal. They had their claws out, and they got into like an aerial battle where they were going back and forth. Well, after that happened, I guess they both gave up, because they both went their separate ways, and the dead goose was still there on the ice. Then I looked over and I saw a shadow in the grasslands surrounding that marsh, and I watched this coyote come out of this grass, and he was just sneaking along out on the ice, saying, well, if the eagles don't want this goose, I'll sure take it. But the funny thing was that it was thin ice, and he kept going through the ice. Now, the water wasn't very deep, but he kept going. He kept on breaking through the ice. And instead of panicking or anything, he would just shake his fur and then get right back up, and he would kind of get lower so he'd distribute his weight better. And he made it to the goose. It took it in his mouth and walked off back into the grass. So you get to see a lot of things. You get to see wildlife in action when you go to some of these places. Just, like up at Los Bluffs, just park your car off of the wildlife loop and just take in, just be patient and just take in the scene. You can see some really neat things. Unique wildlife viewing opportunities. We have some really cool things going on around here. Greater prairie chickens. They're found in the Kansas Flint Hills and the Kansas Smoky Mountains. Smoky Hills, not Smoky Mountains, so Smoky Hills. They gather on leks. It's like a breeding ground. As a lek is like an open grassy area. And they gather from mid-March to mid-May to mate. And it's almost like turkeys. They put on a real colorful dance to show off for the hens. They can be seen at Kansa Prairie, which is near Manhattan, Fort Riley, where you can get permission to go on Fort Riley. You have to fill out some paperwork, and other public lands in the Flint Hills. The Smoky Hills area also has a stable population of birds. Big thing is just look for public wildlife areas. It's on Kansas Wildlife and Parks, their website. Look for in the Flint Hills and look for public areas, and you can have some amazing wildlife viewing. Wild horses. I don't know how many have heard about this, but there's a population of wild horses that can be seen in the Ozarks, in the Eminence area. The Broadfoot Fields north of Eminence, the Shawnee Fields east of town, and the fields above the Two Rivers area are places, if you're going down there, that's home territory for these wild horses. They will roam. There's about 2 herds of wild horses down there. So you still have to be lucky to see them feeding in those fields, but great opportunity. They are beautiful. They're just beautiful creatures. And for elk, yeah, you can see elk in our area. The biggest place is near the Peck Ranch Conservation Area in southern Missouri. So those are some real unique places that you can go visit, and they're fun to visit. Places to visit. We're going to go into some specifics now. This scene is something, again, we're talking about Los Bluffs. Do you think you can fit one more goose into that pack? I don't really know how when they get up, how they don't crash into each other. And I'm sure it happens, but you never see one tumble down to the water or anything. They've got an amazing sense of synchrony when they're getting up off the water like that. And it is awe-inspiring to see something like this. Let's go into this a little bit more. The best wildlife watching in Missouri. This is my opinion. It's not, it's my opinion, but I've been doing this for years. In fact, it's a family tradition for us. My family, we go up to Los Bluffs every year right around Thanksgiving. And that's a time when you're going to see a lot of ducks, a lot of snow geese, and a lot of bald eagles. And at the same time, the deer are active too, so you can see deer on the portion that is wooded. So really a fantastic time to go if you're looking to plan some type of family trip for wildlife watching. Thinking that late November, early December type time frame. That's a great time, a great marker. Okay, so where is Los Bluffs? It's about 85 miles north of Kansas City, off of Interstate 29. I always tell people to look for the Rulo, Rulo, Nebraska exit. You get off on that Rulo, Nebraska exit, and I think it's Highway 159. And you turn left there, and it's down about 2 miles. And you'll see the marshes, and you'll see a marker that says it points the way to the driving loop. And you can go on, there's a 10-mile driving loop that allows visitors to get remarkably close to wildlife. These aren't tame critters. These are wild critters. But you go in there, this marsh, I mean, this tour, they're a gravel road, and they encircle the marshes where the ducks and the geese and the swans and the shorebirds gather in large numbers. You can see them right from your car, or you can get out and take photos and get really close. I mean, you will see bald eagles perched in the trees right above your car. I mean, sometimes you have to get out to get a photo because they're straight underneath. I mean, they're straight overhead from your vehicle. That's how close they are. They sit in these trees and just wait for a duck or a goose to show signs of weakness, and that's how they get their meals. They're going to pounce. Woodland wildlife also, deer and turkeys can be seen, particularly early and late. And then also you can see pheasants up there too. You can see and you can see coyotes, red fox. I mean, just a lot of different wildlife. If you're wanting to get your family into an appreciation for nature, by all means do this in the fall, because they can see wildlife in action. They can see nature in action. Just a great place. I've introduced all my grandkids to nature by taking them up here to Los Bluffs, and they look forward to going back in the fall. There is a picture of what I call this butt to beak, because there's not much room in between these geese when they get in there really tight like that. Now that is a scene from February and March, when they just pile in thick. I mean, they have had times where there have been more than 500,000 birds up at Los Bluffs in the pools, the marsh pools. And if you haven't seen something like that, that is something to see. And when they all get up, like those photos I had earlier, when they get off the water, it can be really a spectacle. Make sure you bring your camera, because people aren't gonna believe you if you just tell them what's going on. So, okay. One other thing that happens up at Los Bluffs, and it is not as heralded as the goose migration or the waterfowl migration, but shorebirds. And in the spring, after the snow geese pretty much leave, the shorebirds come in. And there are some really neat shorebirds that you can spot too. This is an American avocet, pretty bird, and they're stilted. They have stilted legs, and they pick at the mud. They pick for insects and snails and that type of thing. Los Bluffs has been designated as a globally important bird area. And that's not only for the ducks and the geese, that's also for the shorebirds. They attract at least 60,000 shorebirds annually. But the most important statistic is 38 species of shorebirds use this area. They're prevalent in the spring and early summer months, and a 14-acre area adjacent to the wildlife loop near the cattail pool is managed specifically for for shorebirds. So you can see a lot of shorebird activity. You'll find them in shallow. I mean, they're walkers, you know, they're waders. So you can see them primarily in the shallows picking at, and on the mud flats picking at things. So pretty neat thing to see in itself. Swan Lake National Wildlife Refuge, north central Missouri near the town of Sumner. Swan Lake has a rich history. It was established in 1937 by President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Its history once was known for attracting huge numbers of Canada geese. In fact, when I first got to the Star in 1980, Swan Lake was known for its huge flights of Canada geese, and that's where people would hunt geese. They would drive up to Swan Lake. Well, since that time, other reservoirs and refuges have been built, and it spreads out the migration of Canada geese. It doesn't concentrate them at one area like Swan Lake. It spreads them out with all these different bodies of water. But it does still attract Canada geese, and it does attract large numbers of ducks. So this refuge also has a driving tour, and it has hiking trails that allow visitors to get a close look at wildlife. So again, worth, you know, just maybe a couple hours north of Kansas City, and you can, it's great place to observe wildlife. Close to home, close to my home. This is the Parkville Nature Sanctuary. It's located in the most unlikely of spots, downtown Parkville off Missouri Highway 9 and 12th Street. I mean, it's a busy area, but you get back in there and it is like it's like an island of nature. 115 acres, 3 miles of hiking trails. This is not for camping. This is not for walking your dogs. Dogs are not allowed in this nature sanctuary. It is strictly a hiking area, and wildlife observation is the big drawing card. It's known for a beautiful waterfall that it has off the old Cape Trail. It has a winding stream going through it, old growth forest, prairie grasses, and a beautiful assortment of wildflowers. It is a gorgeous area. You walk into the Parkville Nature Sanctuary, you think that you're someplace in the Ozarks. You really do. And I'm not exaggerating. It's you're so close to the traffic and the concrete, but this is just a gem. Hikers often spot white-tailed deer along the trails, wild turkeys, a variety of songbirds, ducks, and butterflies. We have a couple butterfly gardens in there with native flowers, wildflowers that attract the butterflies. So really a fun place to visit, and especially if you don't have a lot of time. If you don't have time to go to one of these wildlife areas or something, this is close, and you will be happy that you did. Weston Bend State Park. This is another gem. It's off Highway 45 near Weston, Missouri. Situated along the Missouri River, Weston Bend's known for its diversity of habitat for birds. It has bottomland forests, wetlands, overgrown fields, and grasslands. And a lot of birds use the Missouri River as a landmark for their migration. And yes, songbirds do migrate. And that's a great drawing card for these birds, is this wildlife area or conservation area right close to the Missouri River. There are 180 species of birds using this state park and the surrounding lands. And in the past, they didn't have it this year, I don't believe, but they usually do. They have a spring festival that's centered around birds, and it's called Wings Over Weston. And it celebrates songbirds. It celebrates the annual arrival of migrating species of birds. I think they even show people how to band some of these wild birds and things like that. So really fun area to go visit. Again, close to Kansas City. This is, if you want to see some big deer, some big bucks and everything like that, you got to visit Lake of the Ozarks State Park. It's on the Grand Glaze arm of Lake of the Ozarks near the town of Osage Beach. Largest state park in the state of Missouri. Also one of the most popular in terms of visitation. But what's remarkable is that despite all that visitation and all that hustle and bustle with the people, there's deer and turkeys and other creatures living in harmony with that scene. Now, a lot of times when there's a lot of activity, they're not spotted that often. But if you wait until late fall, early winter, you're going to see a lot of deer. Time to visit, is when few people use the park. Again, like we were saying earlier, they're not camping and they're not doing too much. There's beautiful hiking trails in there, but you can go in a car and go into the campgrounds. And of course, there's nobody in there. But boy, at different times of the day, you can go in there and see all kinds of deer because they relax. There's nobody pushing them around. They're just relaxing. And this big buck, I saw that several years ago when I went and visited the state park, I think during hunting season. And of course, there's no hunting in the state parks except for managed hunts, special hunts. But you can see things like this. You can see some pretty awesome deer, and you can get pretty close to them because they're kind of relaxed. 56 miles of trails in this state park. It brings hikers into remote areas and along the shorelines of Lake of the Ozarks. So you can see, you can get a different view of Lake of the Ozarks than you normally do, like say at this time of the year in June or July when it's so busy. So I'd highly recommend going there. Peck Ranch Conservation Area, another just fantastic place to view wildlife. It's located in the deep Ozarks of southeast Missouri near the town of Winona. 23,763 acres of rugged Ozarks landscape. Has all kinds of forested hills, glades, what we call in Missouri mountains. They don't measure up to the mountains in Colorado, but still they are mountains. And beautiful streams. The big thing that makes this special is the site of the Elk Reintroduction Project. The Missouri Department of Conservation wanted to establish, they transplanted elk from other states, I think like Kentucky, and they actually would trade. They would trade some species that Kentucky did not have many of for species that we didn't have many of. And the elk have taken off in this rugged Ozarks land. It's your best chance to see wild, free-roaming elk in Missouri. There is an auto tour, there's hiking trails, there's a bicycling. The auto tour is closed from April 1st to July 1st to protect newborn elk. Only primitive camping is allowed. So you can't bring an RV or anything like that in there, but still there are chances to camp there. And it's a Missouri Department of Conservation area, so it's open to the public. And again, just a real popular area for seeing elk in Missouri. Backyard wildlife. I love this. One thing I could say is my wife and I have always been so busy. We're so busy, we'll put bird feeders out and we'll hardly have time to watch them because we're going out of town. My wife owns a clothing business and she goes to a lot of art shows and that type of thing, and she's on the road a lot. But since we've slowed down some in semi-retirement, we're watching our bird feeders a lot more, and we've seen some really cool things. I mean, I love the fact that you can be in an area that's a suburban area, and you'll still see all kinds of birds. This is a Baltimore Oriole. He had just finished that little jar there. He had just finished eating some grape jelly. And also a couple orange slices also attract them too. I love watching hummingbirds. My wife and I love watching them. We've got about 3 hummingbird feeders out. You mix four parts of water to 1 part of sugar and put it in a real colorful, like usually red hummingbird feeder, and they will come in. We talked about the Baltimore Orioles. For goldfinches, put out a tubular feeder filled with Niger seeds or black oil sunflower seeds. And then, of course, like also put out suet for the woodpeckers. Although one thing I've found is if you put too much suet out and everything, if you run out of suet, they'll let you know. They'll start hammering on your house. So sometimes my dogs will perk up their ears. They'll hear this pecking outside this pounding on our house. It's a woodpecker that's he figures if we don't have suet, he'll look for insects on our wooden boards on the outside. So kind of funny, but it's neat to have them around. And then also you can put out nesting boxes. And I've wooden nesting boxes to attract nesting bluebirds or house wrens. And that has worked for us. We have gotten some really neat, in fact, we had a successful bluebird nesting this year. My friend made us a nesting box, and one period we looked out and we saw mom and dad keep flying in and wiggling into that hole. So that's pretty neat too. Couple other pictures of backyard wildlife here. There's a little guy. There's a little hummingbird. Look at how little his feet are. He's perched on that bar for that hummingbird feeder. There's a little goldfinch. Again, using one of those tubular feeders that has different types of seed, small seed. They love that. And that's it. So I hope you enjoyed that. I love the nice thing about wildlife viewing is that you can go year round. I mean, even in the dead of winter, you can put out seeds and attract them in your backyard, or you can go to like some state parks or federal refuges that are open to the public and you can view wildlife. So if it breaks up the year and it gives you something to do. And again, great family activity. So thanks for watching, and watch for more programs. We I do programs at a lot of the different mid-continent public libraries, and I've been doing this since I retired in 2016. So watch for the programs, and we'll talk some more about wildlife.